So the contents of my presentation is, there are four topics in here. One is just telling you about the background of the COVID-19 reached Timor-Leste. The second one is the distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine to the population. And the third one is the fiscal package and economic recovery plan during the COVID-19 period. And lastly, I'll inform you some of the lessons learned and challenges from Timor-Leste. As you can see in the screen, the above is our flag, and in the map we are in the red one, so we are situated between the Indonesia and the Australia. So hope that you can visit our country one day. So Timor-Leste recorded its first COVID-19 case on 21st March 2020. After this, the government on 28 March, 7 days later, adopted a state of emergency situation or declaration by the president. And it has been subsequently extended numerous times. I counted it nearly 19 times because it ended in 2021 November. So because by the constitution, we need to declare this monthly, so every 30 days, the government has to discuss with the parliament and president office. So 90 times. So the first two state emergency aim to limit the public movement through the suspension of the public transport and ban group meetings of more than 5 people in a group, including religious services, festivals, sporting events, cultural activities, and the running of schools and universities. So if you can see this list, it is hugely impact the life of the communities. With no local contamination, the subsequent state emergency aimed to limit the movement across the border. It means that movement from Timor-Leste to Indonesia, because we share the land border with Indonesia. Anyone experiencing COVID-19 symptoms had to self-isolate and submit for the testing. And international commercial flights were suspended until 2021. So in this side, you can see some of the statistical data. As of 16 September, the total cases registered is 23,237. And then it recovered, almost everybody's recovered, 23,065 people. And then total people that were tested is 277,579. And then total death that registered is 138. So this is a bit of a statistic for your information. So given this, how government responds to this situation? This is one of the responses through the distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine throughout the country. As you can see in the statistic, we implemented the first and 2 doses of the vaccine, including the booster one. A booster one is reached 21.6% at the moment. So the other one to respond is government has to adjust make the budget adjustment to respond. But unfortunately for Timor-Leste, we were in the situation that we faced, by the time of the COVID reached, we faced the instability of the government. So we don't have the parliament at that time did not support by majority of the parliament, because we adopted this somehow parliament form government. So it was not supported by parliament. So the government at that time just used use the 112 regime, which is provided by the PFM law, that if there is no budget approved for the current year, the government can use the previous year appropriation, but just limited to the 112, and then limited all capital expenditure and things like that. So we just move into the it launched for almost 10 months. Almost 10 months. So can you imagine that the COVID came, so government was unable to do anything because there's no budget to respond for that. And then luckily, the political situation, they got consensus. And then we approve, Parliament request to the, government proposed to the National Parliament to approve 250 million of extraordinary transfer from Petroleum Fund. Just to let you know that Petroleum Fund is our sovereign wealth fund, which is majority to finance our budget also. That's why because we have this fund there, so a matter of consensus by the Parliament and the government, and luckily they decided this 250 million to transfer and then by that time, the newly created fund, called it COVID-19 fund, was established. And then this 250 million divided into two parts. 150 million is for the COVID fund, and then the other is to increase the liquidity of the treasury at the time for other recurrent expenditure, which is using the 112 regime, as I mentioned before. And then another transfer, another approval in June, and in October, and then finally, because in June, the current Prime Minister gained the majority support in the Parliament because of some of the main opposition of the party in the Parliament joined the government. So it shifted the whole scenario that early election. So government or Prime Minister gets supported, and then finally a budget for. Essentially, a budget for 3 months, so October, November, and December, but the government need to account for the expenditure during the 112 regime, which is until the expenditure of recurrent expenditure until October, taking into account at that time. So the budget is approved. So if you see in the other side, the COVID fund expenditure is mainly for the prevention and mitigation is accounted for 89.6%, and then the other one is for the production activity, and then access to food and non-food. It was very little to do with this. So the next one is somehow the 3-year plan for economic recovery plan. Due to the prolongation of the pandemic situation, government required to apply a more robust and medium and long-term economic intervention measures. The economic recovery plan is focused on 3 main objectives: to increase employment, ensuring all jobs are both productive and dignified, and realization and consolidation of the public social investment programs, such as investing in the education, health, housing, and social protection, and review the productive sector and promote areas that contribute to the economic growth. In the next slide, the government spending on the pandemic in terms of the economic recovery measures of 2020 is totaling to 201 million. Further, in 2022, another spending of 244 million for the economic recovery plan, which included a measure to boost the healthcare system and support to rural economic development. For the budget 2023, which is currently under finalization, which is going to be submitted to the Parliament by next month, the economic recovery plan is still being it's still accounted for how much will be integrated in the budget process. So COVID-19 budget allocation is mainly to in 2021 is nearly accounted for 58.6% of this spending. The measure include employment support, because many people have lost their income, and support for the students, such as the long distancing learning, or learning from home. You need to use the internet and then like that, so we need to provide that, as well as some of the private universities require the tuition fee still paid, and then the government borne that cost on behalf of the students. And then this cash transfer to the families, mainly the families that belong the poverty line, and then the food program for all. We call it call it in Portuguese, call it Cesta Básica program, and then credit moratoriums and others. These measures allow the country, Timor-Leste, like I mentioned before, because of the instability of the government, and then add the pressure of the COVID, the 2023 GDP was brought down to the minus 8.3%. And then because of these interventions, in 2022 we registered, according to the last National Statistic Report, we accounted for a growth of non-oil GDP to 2.9%. It is a huge impact in the growth. The max of the positive growth is driven by the recovery of the business activities. This is the last slide, the lesson learned. One of the main challenges for Timor-Leste was lack of data on household, as well as the non-formal private sector. Imagine you are in the government, you got 3 sources of data to provide, to how to identify in order to provide the cash transfer and then food basket, like I mentioned before. One data is coming from the statistic. The other data is coming from the state administration, and another data comes from the Ministry of Social Inclusion, which is they are going to implement this transfer. So this is the hard thing, and we don't have the data, so we need to take care of that. But luckily, in the implementation, we involve the oversight institutions. For example, our Anti-Corruption Commission, and then the audit. Also audit court also there, and then things can be mitigated by not having the perfect data, but we have to mitigate with this kind of control taking place. As I mentioned, because of the situation made the government difficult to provide the targeted cash transfer to support the small business also. Another challenge in 2020 was the length of time it took for the government to allocate the full funding required to support the population, as I mentioned, because of the political situation. And the main lesson learned, therefore, include widening data coverage on social economic indicators, the importance of taking steps to formalize the economy and having accurate register of small business, the importance of having sufficient contingency fund to allow the government to respond quickly to crisis. For the formalizing the economy, our non-formal economy is huge because of we don't have that data. It will be giving, if we are formalized, it will give impact to the domestic revenue generation also, if we have the data. But that's why the new PFM law that we are currently adopting is cover all of the lesson learned from the COVID fund. So hopefully by the next few years we can have a good database in order to, when the situation like this we face again in the future, we can have sufficient data to intervene, make the policy work very well in the future to respond.